Hurricane Harvey hits Houston, and the fallout is pretty devastating. We'll talk about that. Plus, Antifa goes back to Berkeley, and we'll talk about that as well. Plus, the VMAs decide to hit Trump, because, of course, they do. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Alrighty, so lots of news breaking over the weekend, most of it from Houston, where Hurricane Harvey has hit incredibly hard. Apparently, there's 50 inches of rain in Houston, which is just an astonishing amount of rain. And these pictures are just amazing. I'm going to show you some pictures in just a second of what the hurricane actually looks like, what the conditions on the ground have been. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Texture.com. So if you're an information junkie the way that I am, if you need information all the time, then Texture.com is the best way to get that information. Texture.com is an app that allows you to download and have available hundreds of magazines at a finger's touch. It is amazing. Okay, so for $9.99 a month, you're getting 200 plus magazines. The New Yorker, Time, The Atlantic, Vanity Fair, Reader's Digest, Sports Illustrated, all of your favorite magazines for $9.99 a month. Right now, if you go to texture.com/Ben, you get a 14-day free trial, so you can check it out. It's the way that I read all of my magazines. You don't have to print out all the magazines or have them stacked up in your bathroom anymore. Now you can just have them on your phone, on your computer, anytime you want. You can check all the back issues as well. Texture.com is offering my listeners that 14-day free trial when you go to texture.com/Ben. That is texture.com/Ben. Again, it doesn't matter what you're interested in. They've got a magazine on it. Everything from ESPN Magazine to Field and Stream to Food Network Magazine to Glamour. So it doesn't matter what you're interested in. They will have something for you. And for $9.99 a month, you get all of them, right? You get access to all of these things. So you are never going to be bored again because of Texture.com. And you will always have access to the latest information and in-depth articles. Long-form journalism is sort of going away on the web, but it isn't going away in magazines. You just don't want to have to pay $5 a month to each one of these publications. I mean, if you assume $5 a month for 200 publications, you're talking about $1,000 a month. Instead, you get it for $10 a month. So pretty amazing stuff right there. So make sure that you head over to texture.com/Ben and check it out. Okay, so over in Houston, it is full-scale disaster area. I want to show you some of the pictures of what's happening in Houston. Really incredible. So this is what certain parts of Texas now look like. You can see the entire town is covered in water. There are a few cars on the street, but you can see that the cars are covered all the way up to the windshield. So this water is 3-4 feet deep. You're seeing boats with the fan motors on the back just going around in the streets in this particular photo. Really shocking and incredible photo. You can see some more of it. So here's another picture of this is downtown Houston. It's a lake. It's a lake. I mean, downtown Houston is entirely underwater. Houston is built in an area that is about 35 to 40 feet above sea level, but it is incredibly flat, and there are a few marshes, what they call bayous, that are over there where all the water was designed to flow. One of the things that's happened, people are looking at the streets and saying, why are the streets underwater? Well, that's because the streets were actually designed as a secondary spillway. In case of situations like this, the idea was that the water would go into the streets so that it wouldn't go into your homes, but it's been completely overwhelmed. Here's another picture of what it looks like in Houston today. This, of course, is a small child in his home. And this kid was rescued, by the way. The kid is sitting on the counter, and you can see this yellow brine just rising in the kitchen. Got to be 2 feet high in the kitchen. And there was tape of people who are actually fishing inside their home because there's so much water. They're legitimately just standing in thigh-deep water and pulling fish out of their house. I mean, totally crazy stuff. You can see water, what it looks like when it pours into an office building. This was happening in downtown Houston as well. You can see the doors are shut. It's not stopping the water. Here it goes. This is at the news headquarters. New York Times news headquarters, I believe. Just unbelievable stuff. So some of the questions that people were asking is they were asking, why is it that Houston was not evacuated? So the governor, Greg Abbott, wanted to evacuate Houston about 3 days in advance. The mayor said, no, it's not quite as simple as the mayor's an idiot. The fact is that during Hurricane Rita, there was an attempt to evacuate, and like 100 people died, I believe, during Hurricane Rita in the evacuation because people were stuck on the roads. It was crowded. It was overheated. People were dying in their cars. And so what would have happened if everybody had been on the road and then the flood hits? I mean, you can actually look at what the video looks like of the streets themselves. Look at these boats maneuvering down the street. Okay, this is actually in Dickinson, Texas. This is what the streets look like right now. You can see there are cars that are completely submerged, and people are moving around in their boats trying to save people from their homes. There's an old age home, actually, where They had to save, I think, 15 people where the old age home was completely underwater. Just incredible stuff. So one of the questions that's been asked is, how is Trump doing on all this, right? How's the federal government doing on all this? So Trump, as is Trump's wont, tweets out a lot of stupid things, right? He tweets out a lot of dumb things. He tweeted out a bunch of things about the hurricane that are really kind of silly. He tweeted, it sounds like a game show host tweeting about the hurricane. You know, he tweeted out, for example, "Wow!" exclamation point, right, about the size of the hurricane. I mean, almost as though like this 17 hours ago, all caps, historic rainfall in Houston and all over Texas, flood are unprecedented, and more rain coming. Spirit of the people is incredible. Thanks. And then he tweeted a bunch of things about Mexico. Now he tweeted this. This was yesterday. "Wow! Now experts are calling Harvey a once in a 500-year flood! Exclamation point. We have an all-out effort going and going well." And he also tweeted out, "Many people are now saying this is the worst storm hurricane they have ever seen. Good news is that we have great talent on the ground." So, I mean, the sort of wonderment from Trump is not good tactics. I mean, it's just not great politics. You don't really want to spend a lot of time when in the middle of a storm talking about, "Wow, this is historic." Like, we can all observe this, but we're not in control of it. Like, theoretically, you should actually be projecting a sense of calm when you do this. Not, "Wow, look at that rain. Isn't that amazing? Also, we're here." So, but that's really been the only criticism of Trump, which demonstrates that Trump actually is doing a pretty good job with all of this, right? Trump has not done anything wrong. So the media, can you imagine if Trump were doing a bad job? Remember how the media was about Hurricane Katrina, where it wasn't even the federal government's responsibility to be there? And they responded in relatively prompt fashion, and the media ripped them up and down because the Democratic governor of the state, Mary Landrieu, I think it was, at the time, she was Kathleen Blanco was the governor of the state at the time. She was garbage. She was a terrible governor at the time. And Mayor Ray Nagin of New Orleans had told people not to evacuate, and then a lot of people died because of that, and then they blamed Bush for it. Can you imagine if things went wrong in Texas, how much blame Trump would get? It would be insane, right? The media would never stop. But Trump hasn't done a bad job with this because he allowed his administrators to do what they had to do. He told them to get down. The federal government learned its job from Hurricane Katrina. They're never going to be caught off guard on this sort of stuff again. And you know, the federal government is doing what it's supposed to do here. Greg Abbott said, "Trump has already told us whatever we need, we're going to get." By the way, it's all locals and state that's really doing most of this work. The National Guard is down there helping out too. But this is the difference between Greg Abbott doing a good job at the state level and the mayor of Houston apparently doing a good job with local law enforcement. He's a Democrat, so this is a bipartisan thing. Now, here's Greg Abbott talking about the federal government's response.
What can you tell us about President Trump's personal engagement in this problem and in managing the response to it?
It's been extremely professional, very helpful. He called and said, "Governor, whatever you need, you've got." And this is the quickest turnaround I've ever seen from the time that a governor made a disaster declaration to getting that granted.
Okay, so Trump is doing what he's supposed to do. He's checking all the boxes. The FEMA administrator, right, works for Trump, says, "Listen, we're going to be there for years, and that's okay. We're going to fix all this stuff."
The National Weather Service says that parts of Texas might be uninhabitable for weeks, even potentially months after the hurricane. Are you prepared? Is FEMA prepared to be there for months on end?
FEMA's going to be there for years, sir. This disaster recovery, this disaster is going to be a landmark event. And we're already in the stages. While we're focused on response right now and helping Texas, respond, we're already pushing forward recovery housing teams. We're already pushing forward forces to be on the ground to implement National Flood Insurance Program policies as well and doing the inspections that we need. So we're setting up and gearing up for the next couple years.
Okay, again, the point here is that the media would be all up in Trump's business if Trump were doing a bad job on this. And that's how you can tell when Trump is doing something okay. When the media are all up in Trump's business over something ancillary, that means that the main job that he's doing is basically okay. When Trump does something terrible, the media are all over him. When he does something mediocre, the media are all over him. When they're focusing on his tweets about the hurricane as opposed to the actual federal government response, that means the federal government is doing what it needs to do. And I promise you, the people in Houston don't give two damns about what Trump tweets about this stuff. All they care about right now is there going to be somebody who's going to help me get out of my house? I mean, it was getting so bad that people were tweeting their home address over Twitter to the emergency response teams because the 911 call center was jammed. There have been over 1,000 rescue attempts. I think 5 people dead in the flooding so far in Houston. The local PD was telling people, if you're going to take shelter in your attic, make sure that you have an axe, because if the water rises, you may have to bust your way through the roof. Okay, that's how bad things have gotten in Houston. Good for the local administrators and good for the police and good for the citizens. There have been a lot of citizens, great stories, citizens out there in their boats, going around saving people, just normal people. I mean, just going around. Really, it shows the American spirit. It is amazing how the media covers this, by the way. There was one guy who was driving around and he was sailing around in his boat, picking people up, and he happened to have a Confederate flag on the back of his boat. And the media had coverage of this, and they refused to cover it because he had a Confederate flag. Because clearly this guy was a brutal, vicious racist, even though he was saving black people from their houses too. Clearly the Confederate flag trumps the fact that he's out there saving people. Anyone with a Confederate flag must be evil and nasty. I know there was a story like that today where there was tape of, it was kind of funny tape, of a fellow who had a hawk land in the middle of his car. The hawk came in and landed in the middle of his truck because it had no other place to land. And naturally, the internet went nuts because this guy had a Confederate flag in his car. So obviously, that's something terrible, and we can never, ever, ever say nice things about anyone who has a Confederate flag in their car. The reason that I bring that up is because there was a lot of talk as this hurricane is happening about why can't America just be that? Why can't America just be that? Why can't America just be the place where we all help each other out, where disasters happen, and it doesn't matter our political creeds, it doesn't matter our ethnicities, it doesn't matter our culture. All that matters is that we know each other and we try to help each other out because this is America where we're all Americans. Why can't we be like that all the time? Well, I'm going to explain to you why we can't be like that all the time because we're going to shift focus to Berkeley in just a second. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Zeal. So, right now, are you stressed? Do you need a massage? Zeal can make that happen for you. You don't have to wait in line at the spa. You don't have to make an appointment days in advance. Instead, you go to Zeal.com, and that allows you to actually bring a masseuse to your home. Licensed masseuse comes directly to you. They're all vetted. They're all licensed. They're all terrific. They bring the table with them. They bring the massage oils. They bring the music. They bring the whole deal. It comes right to your house. It turns your house into a spa. That's what Zeal.com is there for. And they have 9,000 licensed massage therapists all over the country. So you can get these people to your house in an hour or less in some cases. We've used it for me, for my wife, for my parents. We've used it for my sister who lives on the East Coast. We've used it for my mother-in-law. We've used it legitimately. Everyone in my family has now used Zeal because it's super convenient and they do a wonderful job. Right now, to help get you started, our listeners get $25 off their first massage by using the promo code Ben at checkout. So when you go to Zeal, ZEEL.com, promo code Ben at checkout, you get $25 off your first massage. And if you sign up for their massage membership, you get 20% off all your massages, plus you get a free massage table and sheet set, which is a $380 value for free. When you get that massage membership, there's no initiation fee to join the membership, just a terrific additional savings on top of the $25 discount you're going to get when you use that promo code Ben. I know that I've been stressed. I'm sure you've been stressed too. The news is very stressful these days. Zeal.com, ZEEL.com can help you out with that. Use that promo code Ben when you check out. Make sure you click on the link that says add promo code and use that promo code to get $25 off. It'll make your life better. I've said many times that one of the great things in life is not having to be rich, but actually to feel like you're rich, to actually live like you're rich. This is one of those things that makes you feel rich without spending a whole hell of a lot of money, and you don't have to wait in line and go to some spa that you've never heard of with a weird name. Instead, the person comes direct to your home. They're all licensed, and they're all wonderful. So Zeal.com, ZEEL.com, and use promo code Ben at checkout. So why can't everything be like Houston? Why can't we all just get along, as Rodney King might put it? The answer is because it's one thing to look at existential threats like the rain and say, okay, we all better get together against it. We better get together against this. I don't talk Game of Thrones on the show too much because I know that a lot of people don't watch Game of Thrones. But this is sort of the general tenor of Game of Thrones, is that there's a threat that comes from the north. It's not giving anything away. It's in the first episode. There's a threat coming from the north, and it's these zombies basically coming from the north of the country. And then in the south of the country, everybody is fighting over domination. And so half of the series is about how do you get all of these people together to stop fighting in petty fashion with each other in order to fight the White Walkers who are coming from the north. Ronald Reagan used to say this all the time about the Soviet Union. He used to say, we're fighting the Soviet Union right now, they're fighting us. But what if aliens were to come from outer space and attack the Earth? Well, then we'd all be on the same side, wouldn't we? We're all human. Okay, but the thing is that the conflicts that we have with each other still matter. So I know that everybody wants to do this kumbaya moment over Houston. Oh, look how everybody's getting along. But I promise you, as soon as the waters recede, we're going to go right back to politics as usual because these issues matter. The question is, how do we all get on the same page about the issues that matter, not just about opposing the rain? Right? Not just about opposing the zombies, not just about opposing the aliens, but on the issues that matter, how do we all get on the same page? Well, I would suggest that the first place to start is we should all be on the same page about you don't get to hit people who disagree with you. Okay, this is the first rule of being a civilized human being. You don't get to hit people who disagree with you. Right? This is what I'm trying to teach my 3.5-year-old right now. You don't get to hit people who disagree with you. Right? She's going to get that message now when she's 3.5, not when she's 25. But the left refuses to get this message. So over in Berkeley, there was I guess they call it Patriot Prides. It's just a right-wing march. No evidence that this is a Nazi march or an alt-right march, as far as I'm aware of. This seems like, I think it's Patriot Prayer is what they call themselves. This is a normal right-wing conservative group, and they were just marching for free speech. And Antifa showed up in force. And apparently it was pretty horrifying, not just because of what happened, but also because of the police response. So this rally was supposed to happen at a park. Antifa showed up. Thousands of them showed up. And the police were supposed to be guarding the park. And the police themselves said, we backed off. That all these people showed up, and we thought that it would facilitate conflict. It would create more conflict if we were to try and get in the way of these Antifa people, so we decided to back off instead. They left vulnerable citizens vulnerable. Here's what some of this Antifa march looked like in Berkeley yesterday. So you can see the red flags and the black flags. You can see everybody's got their face covered. Good indicator, by the way, that if you have to cover your face, you're a criminal, or a would-be criminal. Okay, so you can see that they're carrying basically the red and black is communism and anarchism. That's what that combination is. They're all wearing black. They're all covering their faces. Just like a bank robber, if you cover your face, it's not because you're about to do something good. When is the last time, aside from Batman, no one covers their face to do something good? Okay, everyone who does good things wants credit for it. Everyone who does bad things is robbing a bank. So all these people are there not to do something good, but to march in solidarity with people who hurt people. There was a journalist for the San Francisco Chronicle, and this just goes to show you how insane the press are. So she's tweeting from this rally about the violent things that are going on, and then afterwards she said it was mostly peaceful. I love how this works. So when white supremacists have a rally in Charlottesville, and a white supremacist kills one person and injures 19 others with a car, and a few fights happen, but there are like 1,000 of them, then it's a totally violent rally. But when a bunch of people get violent in an Antifa rally, it's mostly peaceful. That's the way that it works. When there's a Tea Party rally, which no violence occurs, they are called terrorists by Barack Obama and members of the federal government. Okay, here's my view. If a large percentage of your crowd, or even a relatively small percentage of your crowd, is engaging in violence and everyone else is not disassociating, it is not unfair to say that this is a violent movement. Okay, if I were at a rally and people there started getting violent, you know what I would do? I would leave. Or I would tell the cops to stop the violence immediately. Okay, but that's not what happened. Here's Antifa actually attacking a journalist. That guy's a journalist. They grabbed his camera and they started going after him. And there's a journalist who's been pushed down on the ground. And you can see what was hilarious about this is people holding up shields that say no hate on them as they're basically running people over. That was not the only situation like this. Here is Antifa at this rally in Berkeley attacking a father and a son.
What are you guys beating us up for?
They're hopping on this guy and beating the crap out of him. Just grand, folks. It's just like World War II. Remember, we were told like 2 weeks ago that these people were basically just like the World War II soldiers, right? I mean, this is Normandy. This is what Normandy was like. Normandy was a bunch of schmucks beating up a bunch of randos who were walking around. That's exactly what Normandy was. I don't know why you guys don't know your history. Okay, here's another one. Okay, this guy was walking along the street. There are people who were saying, the left was saying he's an apparent alt-righter. Again, no evidence of who this guy is. We have no clue who he is. Somebody else was saying he was a guy walking home from the grocery store who was attacked because he was mistaken for an alt-righter. We just don't know the answer. But regardless, unless he initiated the violence, does this look like appropriate behavior? Okay, you can see there's a guy on the ground. To this guy's credit, there's a black guy who jumped on top of him, and he's trying to prevent people from hitting him. But the guy goes down, and people are beating him up. You can see the folks in the black masks trying to get violent with him. Okay, the worst one is this one. You're about to see a guy legitimately get beat pretty senseless. Here's a fellow who got jumped on and pummeled. This is 11. And you can see there's that guy on the ground. They're dragging him. They're kicking him. They're punching him. Pretty astonishing. So all this stuff was happening. Where were the cops for any of this? You see any cops? So here's the deal, Berkeley. Okay, let's start with this. I'm coming September 14th. We just paid $15,000 security fee so that you guys would be protecting. If this goes down, it's all on you. I've already openly called, and I will continue to call, for no one who's a supporter of mine to engage in violence, even defensive violence. I want everybody to come and be entirely peaceful, okay? This is an act of nonviolent resistance. We're going there with the approval of the Berkeley administration. We have every right to be there. You have every right to be there. You have every right to attend. Okay, don't act violent, because I want the world to know, I want America to see whether the police are going to do their jobs. They charged us an arm and a leg to ensure security. Let's see if they run away and allow Antifa to have its way. Okay, I'm not blaming the individual cops. I think the cops want to do their jobs, but whoever the higher-ups here are, they're doing a garbage job. And if Governor Jerry Brown won't call out the National Guard to stop this sort of material, then he is a horrible governor. He is a horrible governor, by the way. But if he won't do that, then it's just demonstrative of the fact that the left uses the rioters' veto to try and establish these fascist safe spaces in places like Berkeley. So you wonder, you look at Houston, which is the best that we have to offer, and then you look at Antifa, which is the worst that we have to offer, and you wonder what's the difference? And the difference is that when there is no existential crisis, people sometimes get worse. When there's no existential crisis, people find something to believe in. And when you have a country where people have been told for 2 generations now that America is not a thing to believe in, that free speech is not a thing to believe in because, hey, who knows, you may be a Nazi, who say that the regime is a white supremacist regime. America's a white supremacist country. There's nothing to defend. There's nothing to stand up for. Our history is replete with racism and sexism and bigotry. When you teach people that, what's the existential threat? The existential threat is the system itself. Okay, when you look at Houston, the existential threat is not the system. The existential threat is the rain. For Game of Thrones fans, the existential threat is death, right? And even if you're going to lose, you still have to fight. But there's the existential threat. But what happens when that existential threat no longer exists? I think there's a very strong case to be made that one of the great ills that happened to the soul of America, it's a great thing for the world, one of the great ills that happened to the soul of Americans is the fall of the Soviet Union. Not because the Soviet Union was a great place. It was an evil, evil place. It was an amazing thing for the world. The Soviet Union fell. Amazing thing. Millions of people were freed and were lifted out of poverty by capitalism. But for the soul of Americans, the idea that there's this existential threat in the form of an evil ideology, once that goes away, we begin to eat our own. What's the new existential threat that you are going to devote your life to fighting? Religious people, we devote our life to fighting the existential threat of the darkness, right? The idea of being a religious human being in Western civilization is that you devote yourself to fighting off the threat of people who are intent on ripping away the notion of a God-filled universe where your actions matter, right? That's what religion is all about, is you spreading the word that your actions matter, that your soul matters, that God cares about you, and that the universe has a mission for you, right? That's what religion is about. So religious people spend their life fighting that. Sometimes it gets violent in terrible ways, but that's at least their goal, right? What is the goal of Antifa? Presumably they would say their goal is to fight racism. But where do they turn their ire? They turn their ire against the common man walking down the street in favor of free speech, because free speech is just part of the strata, the stratification of American society. It's part of a power structure. This is legitimately what the left says. The left will say that free speech is just the revivification of the power structure. It's just the reinstatement of the power structure. Then the only people who care about free speech are the powerful. That powerless people don't really have power of free speech because they're poor. So we have to silence people. So here's what I suggest. If we all want to get together again, we have to understand that the existential threat is not without, it is within. It is not people so much as it is ideology. Okay, the existential threat that we now face in the United States is a nihilistic view of the universe that says that the new wars we have to fight are wars against liberalism itself. I mean, classical liberalism, against freedom. Freedom itself is a threat. That is the existential threat to the United States. What you're seeing in Antifa is an existential threat to the future of the country, because what you're looking at right now are people who are willing to use violence. Even the Washington Post got this right. Even the Washington Post said Antifa rioters beat up nonviolent protesters, peaceful protesters. At least the Washington Post got that right. They've been blabbing wrongly about this for weeks and months. The existential threat to the country lies within. It's not just the rain in Houston. It's the darkness in the human heart that says, if you disagree with me, I get to shut you down. Okay, that is a serious problem. Again, the tradition of liberty rises out of a Judeo-Christian value system that must be reinforced at every turn for children particularly, but we're fighting that too. The existential threat comes from our own hearts, and that's a much harder thing to fight. It's a much harder thing to fight, and that's why conflicts like this are going to continue to rage, and we won't all just be Houston, because we're not all going to have to deal with a hurricane every day, but we have to deal with the darkness inherent in the human heart, and that's much harder to deal with. It means looking at ourselves. It means fighting ourselves when we think that we're doing the wrong thing. It means contemplating whether we're living up to our own ideals, and it means fighting people who are willing to twist those ideals into unrecognizable forms. Okay, so I want to talk about a couple of things that happened over the weekend in the Trump administration. But for that, you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com and subscribe. For $9.99 a month, you can get a subscription to dailywire.com. That gets you the rest of this show live. It's a video show, not just an audio show. And that means that you get to see the rest of the show live, be part of the mailbag, which we do on Fridays here. It means that you get to see Andrew Klavan's show live, which starts in about an hour. You get to see Michael Knowles' show live. That's about 12:30, and you get to see the entirety of it. When we post all of those shows later, you get to watch them without the ads. So ad-free experience, you get ad-free website as well. And if you get the annual subscription, you get all of those things, plus the finest of all tumblers, the leftist tears, hot or cold tumbler, will take you through many a dark day. As Tyrion says, his job is to drink and know things. This is your job as well. So you may as well drink from a fantastic tumbler and know things from listening to the show. So you can do all of those things for a $99 annual subscription, which saves you money on the monthly subscription. Go over and check it out at dailywire.com. If you want to listen later, go over to iTunes or SoundCloud. Please hit subscribe. Please leave us a review. We always appreciate it. It helps us with the rankings on iTunes and helps us continue to be the fastest growing and largest conservative podcast in the nation.